Every serial killer in history had their own way of killing and their own reasons that left a mark on this world. But the serial killer we're talking about today, Jack the Ripper, had no signature at all. In fact, no one even knows who he was to this day. Decades of searching, countless investigations, and even with all the modern technology we have now, they still couldn't figure out his identity. But what made Jack the Ripper so terrifying wasn't just that he was never caught, it was how he killed.
Francis Tumblety, he was an American so-called Indian herb doctor. In other words, he basically was a quack who went round selling alleged remedies, cure-alls, and preying on the gullible.
Back in 1888, in London, specifically in Whitechapel, 137 years ago, the name Jack the Ripper spread like wildfire, terrifying people everywhere. Women were too scared to leave their homes, and some were even terrified while inside, afraid they might be his next victim. But how did this all start, and why? That's exactly what we're going to uncover in this video. The first kill.
Tumblety was horribly misogynistic. It seems that early in his life, he had married young, found out later that the woman he married was a prostitute and had continued prostitution after they were married.
It began on August 31st, 1888. At 3:40 a.m., officers patrolling the streets stumbled upon a horrifying scene, a lifeless, mutilated body. The woman's throat had been slashed and her lower abdomen was completely ripped open. Her internal organs were spilling out. At first glance, the police thought this had to be a revenge killing. The brutality was personal. Another theory? That the killer was mentally unstable and had no idea what he was doing. But here's the thing, there wasn't a single clue left behind. No witnesses, no fingerprints, nothing. Then, just 8 days later, it happened again, the second murder. On September 8, 1888, at 6 a.m., another body was discovered in a dark alley. And just like the first victim, her throat was slashed in the exact same way. Her abdomen was torn open, but this time something was different. Some of her organs were missing, and they weren't just ripped out randomly, they were removed with precision, like a surgeon had done it. That's when the police realized they weren't dealing with just any killer. This was the work of one person, but who? Nobody knew.
There is no doubt that the London police viewed Francis Tumblety as a key suspect. They looked at his attitude towards women. They looked at his desire to be taken seriously as a surgeon and his odd collection of uteruses. And they believed that Tumblety could have been Jack the Ripper.
The witness. Then something changed. A witness came forward. He claimed he saw the victim around 5:30 a.m. with a well-dressed man with dark hair. He glanced at them, but didn't get a good look at the man's face. And back then, there were no cameras, no technology to track people down. The police had nothing to work with. And then Jack struck again. The third victim, 22 days later, September 30th, 1888. At 1 a.m., another body was found. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice all the murders happened late at night. Jack the Ripper worked in the shadows, choosing his victims when no one was watching. And his victims, they were all prostitutes. Women who worked the streets late at night, easy targets. But here's what made this third victim different. Her body wasn't as badly mutilated. Yes, she had 2 deep wounds on her neck, but her abdomen, it was untouched. The police figured Jack had been about to do his usual thing, but got spooked. Something must have scared him off before he could finish. The confusion. The police searched for witnesses, but this is where things got messed up. One person said they saw her with a well-dressed man. Another claimed the man had dark skin. A third said he was wearing fancy clothes. A fourth swore he looked poor and ragged. So who was telling the truth? Who was lying? The police had no idea. The fourth murder. Then, just 4 hours later, another body was discovered. This time, the victim's throat had 2 deep slashes. Her abdomen was ripped open, and just like before, some of her organs were missing, including her kidney. At this point, the police were panicking. The body count was rising fast. It had been a whole month since the first murder, and they were no closer to catching him. But one thing was now clear. Jack the Ripper wasn't just some crazed killer. He was smart, calculated, and most disturbingly, he understood human anatomy. Then, for about a month and 8 days, nothing. No murders. No signs of Jack the Ripper. The police started to believe it was over. Maybe he had stopped, maybe he had gotten what he wanted. But they were wrong, because on November 9th, 1888, at 10:45 a.m., another body was found. But this time, it wasn't in the streets. The worst murder yet. This murder happened inside a house, in a bedroom, on a bed. And when the police entered the room, they weren't ready for what they saw. This was the most brutal murder yet. The victim's throat had been slashed so violently that it nearly reached her spine. Her abdomen was ripped open, and this time almost all her organs were missing, even her heart. It was as if Jack had saved up all his rage for this one kill. At this point, the newspapers went insane. Jack the Ripper was now the most infamous killer in London. But the police? They had nothing, not a single clue. And then something strange happened. The name Jack the Ripper. If the police had no idea who this guy was, not even his gender, how did they come up with the name Jack? Well, the answer is simple. Someone wrote a letter and left it in multiple newspaper offices. In that letter, the writer claimed to be the killer and signed it Jack the Ripper. The letter was long, but the main point? The writer was bragging, mocking the police, acting proud of what they had done. But here's the twist. Later on, they found out the letter wasn't from the real killer. It was actually written by a journalist trying to sell more newspapers. And yet the name stuck. To this day, we still call him Jack the Ripper, even though, for all we know, he might not have even been a man. But this mystery didn't stop there. Later, the police received a box. Inside was a human kidney. Along with it, a letter claiming to be from Jack himself. The sender wrote, "This is my proof." But was it really from him? Nobody knows. From 1888 to 1891, a total of 11 murders happened in that area, but the police only officially linked 5 of them to Jack the Ripper. These 5 are known as the canonical 5, the murders that were most clearly his work. Over 100 suspects were investigated, but the police never arrested anyone. They had 0 solid evidence. For all we know, the real Jack the Ripper could have been one of those 100 people, but since he left behind no clues, they could never prove it. And to this day, his identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. At the end of the day, only one truly knows who committed these crimes and why, and that's God. Let us know what you think in the comments. And remember, YouTube's algorithm says this next video is perfect for you, so why not give it a watch? Peace out!